big part of the college soccer recruiting process is identification camps, ID camps. There are two types of ID camps, multi-school ID camps and school-specific ID camps. They're both ID camps, but they're very, very different styles. A lot of the times, recruits ask what ID camps are worth attending and what are not. First and foremost, it's important to know that ID camps are usually pretty expensive, especially if they're far away from home, because you have to incorporate flying there, staying in a hotel if it's multiple days, food, and other things like that. So that's something to always consider. This means that you can't attend all the ID camps you'd hope to. You really got to narrow down a list of which ones you think will be most worth it. So I'm here to tell you which ID camps are truly worth your time. Like I said, there's two types of ID camps, multi-school ID camps and school-specific ID camps. Multi-school ID camps are like the title suggests. They're massive ID camps with anywhere from 100 to 400 players, and they have coaches from all over. The tough part about these is that you have to be one of the best players out of all 200 plus kids to really stand out and get noticed. So that's usually going to be a hard one for you. You could be a great player, but if you're not by far one of the best players at this multi-school ID camp, you might not even get noticed at all. Whereas school-specific ID camps are much smaller. They're really held at any school. Most schools have them. For example, I attend Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut, a small Division III school. Wesleyan has their own school-specific ID camps where there's only about 40 kids. This is great because the coaches really get a focus on every single player, and that's why school-specific ones are usually the best. This way, if you've talked to the coach already or he knows who you are, and you come to a school-specific ID camp, he can really focus on you and see how you play. In general, I recommend school-specific ID camps. They're much smaller, more chances of exposure, and the competition level isn't as big because there isn't as many kids. While multi-school ID camps can be good, if a coach recommends that you go to one, I would stay away from them, just because it's much harder to get noticed.